right. Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Ann with Parsons Entrepreneur Academy. Thank you all for joining us today for our monthly office hour series. Today, we are excited to be working with our amazing partners, Nifty Gateway and Parsons Continuing and Professional Education, to bring you this webinar. So here on our platform, we invite successful and inspiring entrepreneurs and leaders to share their stories and the lessons they've learned along the way. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, Parsons Entrepreneur Academy is a platform that empowers creative entrepreneurs like yourselves to build sustainable businesses around your art. You can visit parsonsentrepreneur.com to learn more about our platform. All right, so I am very excited to be joined by today's speaker, Duncan Cockfoster. He is the co-founder of Nifty Gateway, one of the leading marketplaces for digital art and collectibles. Founded in 2018, Nifty Gateway was acquired by Gemini in 2019, a cryptocurrency platform founded by Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss. Nifty Gateway was founded with the belief that crypto and blockchain have the power to fundamentally change the art world by creating greater choice, independence, and opportunities for artists, creators, and collectors. Duncan received a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science from Emory University in May of 2017. All right, hi Duncan.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Our community is very excited to be a part of this conversation and learn more about the NFT ecosystem. So thank you for being here. All right, so NFTs, you've been in the space for a while, but in the past year or two, it's become more of a hot topic, right? You see it more in the mainstream media and more on social media. But outside of people who are a part of the crypto and NFT space, a lot of people are still trying to wrap their minds around it all. So to start off, can you tell us in the simplest terms, what is an NFT and how is it connected to crypto and blockchain?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I want to say is it's totally normal, and I think, you know, people talk about NFTs all the time, and there's still kind of this assumption that everyone knows what they are. But honestly, the vast majority of people that I encounter in my life still don't really know what an NFT is, or maybe they've heard of it, but they don't really understand. So I think that's honestly the most common level of experience. Here's how I describe an NFT in the simplest possible terms. An NFT is the first type of digital good and digital object that you can truly own. You know, before NFTs, every digital object is sort of like a movie that you buy on iTunes. If Apple wants to, they can just be like, hey, sorry, we deleted your movie, you don't have it anymore. Or maybe you own a skin in Fortnite, and you know, if you own a skin in Fortnite and your account gets deleted or the game goes away, then your digital item disappears forever. An NFT is the first type of digital item that has object permanence the same way that a physical item does. If I create an NFT, or a company creates an NFT and then that company goes out of business, that NFT still exists. It's still around. People can own NFTs in a way that no one is able to take those NFTs away from them. So I really think, you know, at the most basic level, that's really just all an NFT is, a digital item that people can truly own. And they're being used for lots of really interesting things, but fundamentally that's the core innovation here.
All right, so thank you for that. So jumping into your background a bit before we go into the broader ecosystem, how did you get into the NFT and crypto space? What intrigued you about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I got really interested in new technologies and especially crypto back in 2017. But back then, almost all crypto was sort of about money and about creating new currencies. And I was really interested and curious to see different use cases of cryptocurrency that weren't directly related to money. And that's how I encountered NFTs. The thing that really made me think that NFTs would be significant in the future was that there wasn't a very large group of people who sort of knew what an NFT was back then, but a lot of the people who did know what an NFT was and who understood the concept were incredibly excited about it. And yeah, even though there are only a few thousand people who would actually pay money for an NFT, those few thousand people were all totally obsessed with the concept, and they would basically spend their nights and weekends learning about NFTs, telling their friends about NFTs. So it wasn't a very large group of people, but the average amount of excitement in that group of people was very, very high. And that, more than anything, is what made me think that NFTs would be a significant technology in the future. Um, you saw that pattern with all sorts of other technologies in the past. Like the internet used to be only a small group of hobbyists, but the hobbyists who used it were really, really passionate about it. Even the personal computer is kind of the same thing, where people didn't really think computers would be small and would be owned by everyone, but the people who did think that were really, really passionate. So that was really more than anything what made me think that NFTs would be significant in the future.
All right, so springboarding off that, so you learned about the space, you were curious about it, and entered it, and then you founded Nifty Gateway with your twin brother. And there are, evolution over the time, things evolved. You were acquired by Gemini, but I thought your mission statement is interesting. It says, "We will not rest until 1 billion people are collecting NFTs." Outside of the niche community that started, like, why is that important to you, this mission?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think really the reason it's so important to me and to a lot of other people at Nifty Gateway is, the way that the internet developed is sort of not ideal in a lot of ways, where most of the people, the way that they interact with the internet, there's really like 4 or 5 websites that run the whole internet. And instead of this free and open thing where people are able to build what they want, you just have Facebook, where for some like ridiculously large number of people in the world, Facebook is the only internet that they know. So I think NFTs are really a way to achieve a better digital future. For example, this is a crazy stat that I read, which is, artists and creators are getting similar amounts of money paid out from Web3 right now as they are from Web2, despite the fact that Web3 is used by 1/100th as many people, or 1/1000th. That's because I think it's just a fundamentally fairer ecosystem to people who create stuff. And I think that's really the key important part of this mission. If we're going to have a world where we have a creator economy and a large number of people make their money through their creativity on the internet, that's not going to work if Facebook takes a 30% cut or a 50% cut of everything that people create. It's only going to work if people are able to sort of control their own destiny and control their own sovereignty online. I really think that's the bigger picture, and that's why it's so important for us to spread NFTs to 1 billion people.
All right, so centering the creative or the artist in this, why should artists or creatives in particular care about NFTs, and how does it benefit them more than the traditional physical art ecosystem? And this is in the context of value and ownership. Why should they care, and what are the core benefits of them participating in this landscape?
Absolutely. I think for a lot of artists, the core benefit is that it's a new type of artwork for them to sell, and it's a new way for them to earn a living doing what they're passionate about. And that's really, really important. And I would say the other really important part is that, the ecosystem operates in a fundamentally different way than the physical art ecosystem. If you're trying to break into the physical art ecosystem, you have to network with gallerists, you have to get a show at an important gallery. And if you're trying to break into NFTs, if you can acquire a following on social media, if you can get a group of people who are really passionate about your work, it doesn't even have to be a large group of people. Then you can earn a living doing what you're passionate about. I really think that's what it's all about. The creator economy is sort of this much talked about topic for the past 5 to 10 years. And I think that's really the best lens to understand NFTs and Web3. a lot of the artists on Nifty Gateway, they were very popular on Instagram. Some of them had even millions of followers, but they didn't really have a way to make money from their artwork. They couldn't sell their artwork in galleries because galleries wouldn't sell digital art. Instagram wasn't giving them any money, despite the fact that they got so much engagement and drove so many people to use Instagram. And so a lot of those artists, for the first time, NFTs were the way that they could sell their digital artwork and make a living doing what they were passionate about. And it's truly been life-changing for them. So far, we've paid out around $400 million to artists, and we've only been around since 2018. So yeah, these are really significant amounts of money. And as I said, this ecosystem and this industry is still in its infancy. If this grows the same way that the internet has grown, then I think a lot more people will be able to make a living doing what they want online, which is a very good thing for society.
So going back to the piece on ownership and how NFTs have sort of shifted certain power dynamics or these new benefits. Like you can speak a bit more to this, but I read in like learning a bit about the space that, I don't know if this is attached to every situation where someone mints and creates an NFT, but there are benefits such as, minting, selling an NFT, and then being able to benefit off of future sales beyond that. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, definitely. Just to give a little context, it is true that if you're an artist and you sell an NFT, you can set up a royalty on that NFT. And then when that NFT is resold on the secondary market, you'll get paid out a percentage of that sale, directly to you. And for a lot of people, royalties usually artists can decide how much of a royalty they want to collect. It's sort of a balance you have to strike, because if the royalty is too large, then people might not buy and sell them as much on the secondary market. But if the royalty is too small, then you won't collect that much money. But that is sort of a fundamental aspect of the NFT world. And I actually think a really interesting aspect of that is the way that royalties came about in the NFT world, because royalties are not a feature of the physical art world. If something sells at Sotheby's and Christie's, they don't pay the original artist a royalty. But in NFT land, there was basically a group of artists and creators that banded together and said, we're not going to launch work on your platform unless you agree to like introduce artist royalties, which was, in my opinion, that's a really powerful statement about how much power and influence creators have in this new world. People have tried again to get Facebook and Instagram to pay out more money to their creators, and it just hasn't worked. Facebook has no real reason to listen to them. But in Web3, the platforms had to listen to them, and they had to introduce that royalty. Royalties, I think, are a very important part of the NFT space that doesn't exist in the physical art world. It's fundamentally fair to the artists, in my opinion. And it really speaks to who has the power in Web3.
All right, so going back to some points that you made about artists who you've seen, have successful NFT drops or collections, having built a community, whether it's on Instagram or outside of the space before they started. I would love for you to talk a bit more about some of the common themes that you see among artists who have successful NFT drops. I think, looking back a year prior when Beeple sold that, or he had that successful auction for over $69 million, that brought a lot of eyeballs to the space as this outlet for people to make fast money. But there are people who actually had existing communities before creating NFTs. But, outside of that, the average person isn't making over $69 million, but there are other artists who've gained success in their own right. So whether it's selling art for tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. What are the common themes that you've noticed among the artists on your platform or just in the NFT space who've been able to have successful drops?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing that I would say is it's definitely not easy. I think people, like as you said, people see a big sale by someone like Beeple, and I don't know. In my view, there's just sort of a human tendency to underestimate how difficult something is, and so I think a lot of people were kind of disappointed in the NFT space because there are a lot of there are a lot of very successful NFT artists, but a lot of them have been working for a very, very long time to get up to the point that they are, and it's not easy. You can't just mint an NFT and sell it. The funnel, there's still a lot of challenges. I would say that with the best people, the most successful artists, they sort of they really they work hard at their craft and they dedicate themselves. They do a really good job building a community around their work. Beeple was a great example of that, where even before NFTs came around, he was sort of already well known on the internet for his everyday artwork. Or Pak, another really successful NFT artist, he had made this image creation algorithm that was very, very popular, and so a lot of people knew him and were familiar with him from that. So I think it takes years. There's no such thing as overnight success as an NFT artist. You shouldn't just expect to be able to mint something and be set for life right away, because it's very difficult. I would say another good tip is really try and interact with other people who are in the NFT world. I have a friend of mine who's an artist, and I'm doing everything I can to help him get popular, and he spends a lot of time on other artists' discords or on Twitter, engaging with people, sort of being a positive contributor to the community, and I think that helps a lot. And then the third thing I'll say is there's no definitive formula. A lot of artists find success in different ways, and what made one artist successful is not necessarily going to make another artist successful. So I think you sort of have to think about what you can do differently, and think about how to really like create something special.
Yeah, so like on those points, as a creative, that's one aspect of it. But thinking of the NFT space, this is, even though you're talented and you've built a community and you're great at your craft, you are still entering this landscape that has new infrastructure that requires some form of basic understanding or some form of understanding. And that is probably a barrier to entry for a lot of people, understanding Web3 and crypto and all of these pieces that the NFT world sits on or sits in. So the education piece is also important for an artist. You're going into a space where you're transacting, so it's not just about creating your business person. So what should a beginner or someone who is new in the space, how should they start on that journey of educating themselves so they can really maximize their opportunities in the space?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say, I think the educational resources, because the space is so new, there's not as many educational resources out there as there should be. And probably in 5 years, there will be a lot more. I would recommend listening to podcasts with NFT artists who have had success. So Fuocious is probably a great NFT artist to listen to a podcast with him. He really has an inspirational story. I think Beeple has a lot of good advice. So podcasts with successful NFT artists would definitely be a great resource to start. And then the other good resources is Twitter and Discord. And NFTs are really like a community that's living and breathing. People are like posting about NFTs all the time and sharing wisdom. And a lot of it, you can find a lot of wisdom just by reading those sources. I would say, as far as classes and stuff like that, I mean, Parsons, obviously. But I don't think that we're at a place where, you know, I don't think any colleges, for example, are teaching courses on how to be a successful NFT artist yet. I think in a few years that'll happen, but I think we're still early enough that it's honestly hard to find great information.
Someone's asking for the podcast name again, if you don't mind.
Sorry. The name of the artist is Ferocious. Can I type in the box?
Oh yeah, you can type it in the comment section, I believe.
Weird. I don't see a box for me to type. Ferocious. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Nifty Gateway, for posting it. Yeah, I think Ferocious is a very friendly, approachable person who's done a lot of really great content about, you know, their journey, and so, you know, probably a lot of good lessons to learn there.
All right. So after someone's, you know, they've listened to Ferocious, and, you know, dug around in the Discord communities and NFT Twitter, and now they're ready to jump in and mint NFTs or buy NFTs. Going to your platform, Nifty Gateway, can you talk about what the process is of joining Nifty Gateway? And I guess we can start from the perspective of the artist. So if I was an artist and I wanted to join Nifty Gateway and do drops, what is that like? Does anyone get to just join and do drops? Is it curated? Like, what is it like? What's the process like?
Yeah, so Nifty Gateway in its current form is a curated platform, which means if you're an artist, the only way to release content on the platform is to submit an application. And then we have a curational team that reviews all the artist application and selects who we want to do releases with. We're in the process of changing our process pretty significantly, though, where instead of only having the curated section, we're also going to let other people essentially be curators on our platform. So once we make that change, which we're currently working on it should be later this year, we'll basically have a place where you can go browse the other curators and, you know, submit an application to them. But yeah, currently Nifty Gateway is a curated platform and it's only application based. Honestly, a lot of the reason that we made that decision was we really wanted to get the product right before we scaled it up and figured out a way to release a lot more NFTs. And I think we're at the point where we're ready to like scale it up and open it up a lot more. So by the middle of the year, I think we'll have made that change and it'll be significantly easier for people to release NFTs on Nifty Gateway.
All right, so on the other side of the coin, and there are people who are artists who are also collectors. So they buy and trade NFTs. But for people who are looking to get on to the platform to buy NFTs, what's that process like? And also just outside of Nifty Gateway, like what are the pieces that you really need to understand and have together to be able to participate?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the nice parts about Nifty Gateway is we have a really easy onboarding experience for people who have never bought an NFT before. So if all you need to collect an NFT on Nifty Gateway is just an email address and a credit card. You can just sign up and buy NFTs with a credit card. It's as simple as purchasing something on Amazon, which I think is really, really that's really important to us because we really make a lot of efforts to try and easily onboard collectors into the space. The other thing I would recommend that you get is a MetaMask wallet and some cryptocurrency. We have an option where it's called the custody option, where basically we'll hold on to NFTs on your behalf. And then when you want to take custody of them, you can withdraw those NFTs, which is similar to the way that if you're buying cryptocurrency on Gemini or Coinbase, those are also custody platforms. But then also on Nifty Gateway, if you have your own wallet, if you have a MetaMask, you can use that as well. And you can buy NFTs with ETH directly held in your MetaMask. So yeah, I would really recommend opening up a MetaMask wallet and funding it with a little cryptocurrency, because that's a really important tool to use in the NFT space. the best way to buy cryptocurrency is through an exchange. So Gemini is the exchange I would recommend. They own our company, so I'm a bit biased, but it is a really awesome user experience. And then there are a few other popular exchanges as well, like Coinbase, for example. So yeah, basically, if you're trying to buy an NFT on Nifty Gateway, all you need is an email address and a credit card. It's a really simple purchasing experience. But I do also recommend that you open up a MetaMask wallet and fund it with a little cryptocurrency, because that'll really help you access the rest of the NFT ecosystem. And also, it is definitely confusing for people to open their first wallet. So if you find it confusing, just know that you're not alone. And it's difficult for people to get onboarded into NFTs.
All right, so there've been like recent headlines about phishing scams in the NFT space, and for people who are seeing those headlines and might be trepidatious about entering, or might feel even more confused, or think that it's just something that they shouldn't enter because it's way over their heads, if these things can happen. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and what should people be aware of? Like how could they be impacted by this? There are people who, or I guess, millions of dollars worth of NFTs were stolen, essentially. So for people who are looking at that, like, just talk a little bit more about what's happening there, and what should people know? How could it impact them?
Definitely. Well, the first thing I'll say is that Nifty Gateway is actually a really safe option if you're worried about phishing scams. If you just keep your NFTs on Nifty Gateway, it's far less likely that you'll be phished, because we have a lot of security measures in place. And even if someone does manage to take your password to your Nifty Gateway account, they would still need, that wouldn't be enough for them to steal NFTs out of your Nifty Gateway account. So if you're new to the space and you're just getting started, Nifty Gateway is a pretty good option. A lot of the phishing scams directly target people's wallet, and really the truth of the matter is that scammers are making a fair bit of money scamming people, and whenever that happens, you just get this effect where more scammers try to start doing it because they see other people making money doing it, and it becomes this sort of negative flywheel where there's a lot more scams that happen because it's working. And that's the way I would describe the cycle that we're in right now. If you have a wallet, be very, very careful whenever you interact with the website using that wallet. That's the vast majority of the way that scams are perpetrated. People will be sent to a website that looks like a familiar website. They'll be told to sign a transaction on their wallet, and then NFTs in their wallet will be drained out of that wallet. And so, be extremely vigilant. No one will ever ask you for your seed phrase or for your private key on any website ever. If anyone is asking you for your seed phrase or your private key, they're trying to steal your stuff. That is something that a lot of scammers will pose as customer support for a company, essentially. And then, they'll have a long conversation with the person they're trying to hack. And then at the end of the conversation, they'll be like, I still can't figure it out. Can you just share your private key with me and I'll solve it? And you see stuff like that happens a lot. So, be wary of that. And if anyone ever asks you for your private key, an alarm bell should go off in your head. And then, the other thing I would say is, just always be aware of the fact that crypto and NFTs and items held on your wallet are bearer assets. If someone takes one from you, there's no way for you to get it back. So you should be really, really careful anytime you do anything crypto related, because there's always that possibility, and people have a strong incentive to steal it from you. Those are the tips I would give.
What's a seed phrase, by the way?
Okay, so your wallet is essentially a place for you to store your NFTs and cryptocurrency. And the way that it works is you have a secret bit of information called a seed phrase. And in order to prove that you own the stuff that's in your wallet, you will sign messages with that seed phrase, with that secret bit of information. But that means if anyone gets that secret bit of information, your seed phrase, and a seed phrase is literally a group of 12 or of 20 or 24 random words. But if anyone gets access to that, then they have the ability to take control over all of the assets that you have in your wallet. So yeah, it's very important to keep that secure.
Wow. All right. Well, on another topic that a lot of people are concerned about, this is around the environmental impact of NFTs because it sits on the blockchain and crypto infrastructure, which is known to use a lot of energy. So can you talk about, like, I know you all have taken a pledge to become carbon negative, but can you talk a bit about that and, like what has the community's response been to your pledge?
Yeah, I think the community responded very, very positively, and people really appreciate it when platforms are, good patrons of the environment. The thing I'll say about blockchain and the environment is it's actually very specific to individual blockchains. It's not an overall issue with the technology itself. It has to do with the way that some blockchains are implemented. So, if a blockchain is a proof of work blockchain, then basically the way that it's designed is based on computers using a lot of different energy. And so Bitcoin is the most famous proof of work blockchain. But most NFTs are based on Ethereum, which, while Ethereum is currently a proof of work blockchain, it's actually transitioning to becoming a proof of stake blockchain in the next few months. The code is all written to make that transition, and they're about to hit the button to do it in the next few months. And so once Ethereum transitions to being a proof of stake blockchain, the amount of energy that it uses will actually be comparable to, Twitter or any other website, really. Other proof of stake blockchains have studied and audited the issue, and essentially once you've transitioned to a proof of stake blockchain, the amount of energy that it costs to mint an NFT or to buy an NFT would be about the same amount of energy as doing a Google search or sending out a tweet. So once that transition happens, Ethereum, which is where all the NFTs are based, won't actually, use energy at all. And that's really people's main concern. And then Ethereum is actually one of the only proof of work blockchains left. All of the other blockchains where people mint NFTs, so that's Flow, Solana, and Tezos, those are all proof of stake blockchains. So they don't really use any significant amounts of energy. But it is a very valid concern. I think me and a lot of other people are happy about the fact that Ethereum is making this transition because it'll be much better for the environment.
And are there any other steps that you all have taken in that regard?
Well, one other step is, we've done a lot to reduce the amount of block space that we use on the Ethereum blockchain, which is sort of like, the Ethereum blockchain is a shared resource. If people want to use more of it, then there is more increased mining demand. So we've done a lot to really, really decrease our block space use.
All right. So, for the people who are watching, there are a lot of creatives in the audience, and there are probably people who are bridging both worlds, or some people who are more on the collector side. What, from your experience being in this space for as long as you've been, from an innovation standpoint, what do you think is missing, or where are some gaps that you think need to be filled that people could, take advantage of, or be, the creators of solutions in the space to make it better for artists and for everyone?
I think, one big issue that I think a lot of smart people are working on is, historically, it's been pretty difficult to display NFTs in your house. It's kind of hard to get a screen that fits the NFTs that you own, and it's hard to hang them up. So there's a few different companies that are building display screens. and we have a partnership with Samsung to make it really easy to display NFTs in your house. I think that's really important for bridging the gap. A lot of people, don't understand NFTs until they see them displayed on a screen. A lot of people, I hear this all the time. They tell me, why would I buy a piece of art that I can only look at on my phone or look at on my computer? So I think the screens are a really, really important step, and I'm really excited for our Samsung partnership, which will help, bring NFTs into the real world. And the other thing that I'll say is I think, we could honestly use more NFT curators. The physical art world has a lot of galleries, and at first, when I first learned about the physical art world system, I didn't really understand why. Now that I've learned more, I've really come to understand that, the, the gallerists help the artists make a living. And if you just took away every art gallery in the world, the total amount of people who make who like earn a living as an artist would go down, not up, despite the fact that gallerists take such a high cut. I think the NFT art world really needs that middle layer of people who, really help an artist sell their work, help an artist market themselves, help it essentially perform the business function for an artist, specifically in the NFT space, because a lot of artists are not naturally prone to do that. So those are really the two big things.
So that's really interesting, especially the second example that you gave. Are there examples that you've seen already of people who are NFT curators? And if so, what are, is there a connection to the physical art space? Like, were they like a physical art curator before? Like, what are their backgrounds usually like? And to be an NFT creator, like, what should you know or be versed in to do that?
I've honestly seen a mix. Some people are, they come from a physical art world background and they own a gallery first. But some people who are effective NFT curators are online only, and they only know people, like they only got interested in the NFT space. I think really what makes a good curator is that they're good at helping artists. They're good at understanding an artist's individual strength. They're good at understanding who would potentially be a collector for a specific artist. They're good at helping an artist come up with creative new ideas to distinguish themselves and get attention. So yeah, I think the skill set is pretty similar to being a gallery owner, but it just all happens online, which is really the key difference.
All right. So going back to artists, there, like, you see a lot of stories of artists who, have shared these transformational or testimonials about how NFTs, transformed their outlook as an artist, where, they might not have been able to have profited from their art before, and this was entering the space was transformational for them financially. What are some of the, I'm curious, like, what are some of the most inspiring or transformational stories or examples that you've seen on Nifty Gateway?
I think Ferocious definitely comes to mind as an inspirational story. I mean, Ferocious was a transgender teenager living in an abusive household, and he sort of became popular on social media and started selling his artworks for, in some cases, literally millions of dollars. And now he owns his own house. He's much happier. He has a supportive community around him. But that was a really inspirational story that I think could only happen through NFTs, because he's also only 18 years old, 18 or 19. He might have had a birthday since, but he's very young. And I think it would be hard for someone like that to be accepted into the physical art ecosystem. In NFTs, though, people really connected with his work, and that was that. And honestly, we see a lot of, there are a lot of artists on the Nifty platform who are quite young, 14 or 15, which I think is very cool, because online in the internet world, maybe in the physical world, people wouldn't look at a 15-year-old as a serious artist, no matter how talented they are. On the internet, people don't even know how old they are, and the work is really what speaks for themselves. And maybe people find out later that, oh wow, this person is 14, and they're surprised by it. But yeah, the talent is really what speaks for itself, which I think is a very inspirational aspect of NFTs.
All right, so we're going to jump to Q&A in a bit, but I have a couple more questions. So there are people who are skeptical about the NFT space. As with any technology that or innovation that's new, and there's speculation or talks that it's a bubble. What are your thoughts on that, and where do you see the NFT landscape in 10 years? Like, as someone who's a leader in the space or a visionary in the space, well, what are your thoughts on the speculations, and where do you see the space in 10 years? How do you see it evolving?
I mean, I think as you said, history is full of examples of people getting overly excited about a new technology and sort of getting ahead of themselves. And I think NFTs are no different in that aspect. And there are definitely NFTs that people have overpaid for. There are NFTs that people have purchased for a lot of money that they'll likely never be able to sell again. And I think that is like largely it's sort of an inevitable outcome of having a new, exciting, disruptive technology. You really saw the same thing when the internet first became popular, and people funded all these really unprofitable companies and lost a ton of money. I don't think NFTs are quite as bad as the internet bubble, but I think that there definitely is speculation. I think if someone is a skeptic of NFTs, usually what I encourage them to do is to like read some of the stories of the artists whose lives have been changed, which to me, I think that's really what it's all about. Yeah, I know people are skeptical, but as I said, we've paid out $400 million to artists in total, which is no small amount of money. Like, NFTs are allowing people who could never make a living selling their artwork before to make a living selling their artwork for the first time, which is just a fantastic thing in my opinion, because these people would otherwise they wouldn't really have a way to pursue their art otherwise, and they'd be stuck in some job that they don't like. So yeah, I think and then also the other thing I'll say is I think a lot of NFT enthusiasts are like very enthusiastic and maybe a little overly enthusiastic. And it's important to remember that NFTs don't solve every problem. This doesn't I think there's a lot of advantages to the ecosystem, as we've talked about, but it doesn't mean, it doesn't it instantly mean you can find success as an artist, for example. So yeah, I think when I talk to skeptics, that's what I try and center it around, which is, the artists whose lives have been changed, and, the people who can make a living selling their artwork who never could before this technology.
All right. So, so last question. This is a fun question. So you introduced us to, or those who weren't aware of him before, Ferocious. Are there any other favorite NFT artists that you have?
I mean, I'm a big fan of all of the artists that we have on our platform. Of course, they're all incredibly talented. A few other standout artists, I think. I think Pac is a real interesting artist. Pac is always sort of pushing the envelope and doing, these like very conceptual artworks. I'm a big fan of Josie Bellini. She's a really early crypto art pioneer, and she doesn't release artwork very often, but she's incredibly talented and has really had a hugely positive impact on the ecosystem. I really like the artist Vils. He has some really interesting artwork. For his first drop on Nifty Gateway, he blew up a building and recorded it with a super high frame rate camera. He had permission to blow up the building. This wasn't like it was an old industrial building that was right next to his studio. But I thought that was a very, very innovative and interesting use of the NFT medium.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Duncan. This was such an insightful, informative conversation, and I'm pretty sure there are a ton of questions out there. So I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask you some questions.
Perfect.
All right. So Stephanie wants to know, what does your traditional galleries think about NFT? think about NFTs? Are they upset about this? Just curious.
I think you know, it's kind of a mixed bag. Some of them are upset, and maybe they were a little bit more upset last year. I feel like last year they were a little scared, and there's kind of this sentiment of like, oh my god, is the art world that I knew and loved like gonna get just disrupted by this new technology? I think now they're honestly a lot more receptive, and they've gotten to understand the NFT space a lot more. They've stopped seeing it as a threat and are really like excited about the potential more than anything. I mean, I still think that there's a mixed bag, and some galleries are embracing NFTs a lot more than others. But I think for the most part, they're really excited about the opportunity, and they really see this as a way to, like, they see the NFT movement for what it is, which is a lot more people getting interested in art, and you know they recognize how cool that is.
Could NFT be any kind of art? Could an NFT be any kind of artwork? Could it be a digital clothing?
Yeah, you know, people have really experimented with the NFT medium in a lot of interesting ways. I mean, for example, the original source code of the internet was sold as an NFT at Sotheby's. I think it sold for around $5.5 million, which was a really, fascinating use case. I will say, like, there are things that collectors are willing to buy. And like, if you try something experimental, you can't always guarantee that collectors will connect with it. But at the same time, there's always an opportunity to push boundaries in interesting ways.
It's not too hard to mint an NFT. There is plenty of info available. The hard part is promotion. There's a lot of noise out there. Any advice on promotion or getting onto Nifty Gateway?
I mean, I think this is an interesting question because, as I said, I kind of think that this is one thing that's missing in the ecosystem, where in the physical art world, essentially the gallerist is responsible for promotion, and they sort of take care of the business side. And I think that the NFT world has not developed that same layer yet. I think my advice for promotion is really be patient. It takes a long time, and you sort of have to work at it steadily. Do your best to connect with other artists who are also trying to make it. Like, I've seen a lot of artists who sort of, they find other artists who recognize their artwork, and that's how they become well known to collectors. And getting onto Nifty Gateway, I mean, as I mentioned, one of our big plans for the year is to open up the platform significantly and increase the number of people who are releasing artwork on Nifty Gateway. So, yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Can you describe generative art NFTs and what segment of the market is most attracted to those collections?
Sure. So, just a quick definition: a generative art NFT is where, instead of an artist, creating the image with Photoshop or Procreate or some sort of, or a drawing or something like that, instead the artist will create a set of parameters and then feed in random inputs to those parameters, and that informs what the final image looks like. So at its most basic level, you could just say, all right, I'm gonna make an NFT, and I'm gonna select a random number, and if the number is even, the NFT will just be a blue screen, and if it's odd, it'll just be a red screen. And that would technically be a generative art project. Of course, people get way more complicated with it, and they would say, okay, I'm going to generate a random number, and if it's a blue screen, and then and then I'm going to generate another one, and if it's even, I'm going to draw a green circle in the middle of the blue screen, and so on and so forth. And it gets really complicated, but that's essentially the basic idea behind generative art. I think people are really attracted. Collectors really like generative art because it's a way to create a cohesive collection of NFTs, while also ensuring that every NFT in the collection is unique. So I think that really appeals to a lot of people because people want to own a unique one-of-one NFT. They want to own something that's unique to them, but also there's benefits to an NFT being part of a set, because then other people. if it's a part of a set, then you sort of have marketing baked in, and it's easier for other people to find out about. So I think that's who generative art appeals to.
It's overwhelming the number of types of NFTs I see out there. Are there any trends you're seeing in what type or style of NFT that are more successful than others?
The thing I would say about this is, even if one type of or style of NFT is more successful right now, it's really constantly changing, and there's a ton of variability. So I mean, when I first started working in the NFT space 3.5 years ago, the most commonly bought and sold category of NFTs was digital metaverse land, and people didn't really buy and sell art. And then a year after that, art became the most popular category of NFTs. And then a year after that, it became profile pictures. So I would recommend that you find the space, find the part of the NFT space that you like the best, and then just count on the fact that like that space is going to continue to grow. And instead of trying to predict the next trend or predict what type of NFT is going to be popular next.
Does tagging help significantly with findability? For example, categorization, taxonomy versus interest in being unique?
I think tagging definitely helps with findability and discoverability. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good thing that someone could do to distinguish themselves. I will say there isn't really a great, I think discoverability is sort of a difficult issue in NFTs overall. There's not like I wouldn't say there's like a Google search of NFTs, or there's not really a database that has every NFT known out there. So yeah, I think it does help, but I think it really depends on the marketplace where the NFT is being sold.
Can you explain the criteria or line of thinking for an NFT creator to consider for the quantity of NFTs in a collection?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned, I mean, there's real advantages to having a large quantity of NFTs in a collection. The main advantage is that it really just makes the whole collection more liquid. It makes it easier for collectors to be able to buy and sell that NFT quickly, which really has a big impact. If a collector can easily sell an NFT, then they're much more likely to buy it in the first place. If you make a unique one of one NFT, then you're really limiting the pool of who can buy that NFT. Where if you make a collection of 1,000, then you're making it possible for 1,000 different people to own an NFT from that set at the same time, and that just naturally makes it much more liquid. I would say when you're thinking about this, the most important thing if you're creating a collection of or set of NFTs is that they all sell out on the primary market. So I think that's a really important aspect to consider. You don't want to make too much quantity on the primary market, but I guess I shouldn't. I mean, a lot of collections like take a long time to sell out on the primary market and are still successful, but I sometimes do see people who essentially bite off more than they can chew, and create too many NFTs, and then collectors just feel like their supply is too much, and they react negatively to that.
On the topic of fraud, is it easy to copy/duplicate an original piece of artwork and mint it as your own, even though you don't own it?
Yeah, it is really easy to do this. But the thing is that the blockchain provides a tamper-proof ledger. So while it is very easy for someone to do that, it's very easy for someone else to verify that that's what happened, and it's really easy to distinguish between a fake NFT from a real NFT. So that's why it isn't that much of a problem. Occasionally, people do buy fake NFTs, but I wouldn't say, and it is definitely something that you should be careful about. That's another thing we do at Nifty Gateway. We actually verify all the content to make sure that this exact thing never happens. But on some other platforms, people do occasionally buy fake NFTs, and it sucks. It's a bummer.
Should an artist file copyrights on their artwork before listing it for NFT sales?
That's a good question. I'm really not sure. And I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to give legal advice. But for the most part, I mean, NFTs are similar to physical art. You don't own the copyright on an NFT when you buy it. You just own the NFT. Similar to how when you buy a painting, the artist usually retains the copyright. So I mean, it's definitely good to have thought through this and to be intentional about your strategy. Different segments of the NFT market treat this differently. Some NFTs essentially give you the copyright if you own the NFT. Some NFTs are just fully open. They don't enforce copyrights at all. They say just use our IP wherever you want, because we think that you using our IP, we think that's better for us as the original NFT project.
Does reducing blockchain use mean sidechains? And if so, aren't sidechains less stable?
No. In our case, reducing blockchain use just meant being more efficient about the way that we use the blockchain. There's a lot of stuff that you can do to optimize your usage of the blockchain without using a sidechain. It just requires, it requires you to really dig in deep into the contracts and to the code that you've written in, and to really figure out optimizations that you wouldn't have otherwise. So in our case, it just took a lot of research. That was basically what it required. But no, it didn't require a sidechain.
Really quickly, what's a sidechain before we go to the next question?
A sidechain is so there's essentially different blockchains that exist in the world. I've talked about Bitcoin and Ethereum. A sidechain is it's sort of like it's similar to a different blockchain, but it's directly related to an existing blockchain. So Ethereum has lots of side chains, which are essentially places where you can do blockchain transactions, and then if you want, you can move your stuff back to the Ethereum mainnet, and people use them to save money, and to call transactions faster. People use them for all types of things. I would picture it like if a blockchain is a city, and a blockchain is like New York City, then a sidechain is sort of like a suburb. It gets too expensive to live in the main city, so people move close by, but they can still work and eat in the main city if they want to. That's kind of the way I would think of a sidechain.
Thank you. All right. To become a creator, you need to receive an invitation from a creator who belongs to Nifty. This makes the merits of the work are secondary to the connections. How can you solve this merits first?
So it's not accurate that you need an invitation from a creator who belongs to Nifty. You need an invitation from our curational team who basically reviews portfolios one-on-one and works directly with artists to come up with stuff like pricing and what artwork they're going to release. So that's the way our curational team works. But as I mentioned, opening up the platform and letting a lot more people release artwork on Nifty is one of our big initiatives that we're working on this year.
Can I make NFTs out of traditional photography, film, or digital? I also made some cinemagraphs. Can either that sold on this, or I guess, can you sell that on the Nifty platform?
Yeah, people do make artwork out of traditional film and digital. Justin Aversano is one of the best known NFT photographers. And he basically had a set of physical photographs that he minted as NFTs, and the collection has become enormously popular. So yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of photographers are minting their photos as NFTs, and some of them are very popular.
What is the commission percentage taken, and how does Nifty Gateway come up with a marketing plan to justify the commission? Why Nifty Gateway over other platforms?
I would say the biggest difference between Nifty Gateway and other platforms is the creative team that I mentioned earlier. So a lot of other platforms are are basically open minting platforms where you can go on and mint your NFT. But we actually work directly with all of the creators who launch stuff on our platform. So we, as we mentioned, we help them figure out a marketing plan. We help them come up with stuff like pricing and quantity, and we help them if they have really crazy ideas. We help them implement new ideas that are like kind of out there and require extra work. So that's really the main difference between Nifty and other platforms. And we actually don't disclose our fee on the primary market, but it really varies a lot. Yeah, so that's what I'll say about that.
Can you talk about content constrictions? Warhol's highest sale price at Sotheby's was his silver car crash in 2013. 60 years later, mainstream media still refuses to show the graphic images of car crashes.
Yeah, I would say that our policy on this is right now I'd sort of say it's evaluated on a case by case basis. And I think similar to the art world, it can be a really tricky issue to figure out because artists are very expressive. A lot of their job is to challenge society. So you really don't want to be too restrictive, but obviously there is some content that crosses the line. So for us, it's usually like violence is probably something that we wouldn't want to do. This is a big advantage of our system, though. We work directly with the artists, so we can give them feedback like that. And if the artist feels really strongly about something that they want to do, then then we can say yes.
Does an artist have to be paid out in crypto?
That depends on the platform. On Nifty Gateway, they do not. They can be paid out in fiat currency if they want to. On some other platforms, yes, they do have to be paid out in crypto, but generally people are paid out in Ethereum, which is it's very easy to sell Ethereum for US dollars. You can convert it to US dollars really easily.
What are the pros and cons of minting as an auction versus set price? Is one better than the other?
I think the big pro of an auction is that it's a price discovery format. You discover what people are willing to pay for your work, which can be quite valuable. I think it can be damaging to an artist's career if they mint something at a set price and then it just doesn't sell. And so that's really the main pro of doing an auction. I think for the most part, we generally recommend that people do auctions instead of set prices, but really it's a mix of both. And I think every artist should experiment with both formats and not do solely one or the other.
Can the NFTs on this platform be pegged to physical art?
No, we don't have a way to do that. We've thought a lot about, I think in the early days, a lot of people wanted to do NFTs that were pegged to physical art, but our view is that, NFTs are digital assets and that's more than enough. Stuff doesn't have to be a physical asset just to have value. I think that's what NFTs show more than anything else.
Web3, metaverse, blockchain / crypto. How would you effectively explain the interconnectivity of all three concepts in, say, one sentence to a layman?
I would say that they're all like very related, but slightly slightly distinct. I would say blockchain, Web3, and crypto are a way to realize the vision of a metaverse in a way that's open and accepting. And there's other visions of the metaverse that are sort of closed off. Like the news just came out that Facebook wants to charge, if you sell something in the Facebook metaverse, they'll charge you a 50% commission. So I think like you could have a metaverse that's not based on Web3 or crypto, but you could also have a metaverse that is open and anyone can like bring their own stuff into. So that's really how I relate those three concepts.
Our project is using NFTs to keep a forest in California standing and support tribal co-management. Does Nifty Gateway help projects like ours that are working to mitigate climate change?
Yeah, we've done a few different drops that have helped mitigate climate change, including an auction that we did last year that raised $6.5 million, actually, which we were quite proud of. So yeah, and I would say that we also do a lot of drops that are sort of charity related or related to good causes. That's definitely something that we do a lot of.
Have you seen NFT art so popular that it made its way back to the physical plane? For example, a fashion house taking the NFT art pattern and using it for clothing.
Um, I mean, I've definitely seen NFTs that have been painted in the physical world. I don't know about that specific example, but I mean, not too far away from me in New York City, there's a city block where there's a bunch of NFTs painted on the wall. And a lot of people, if they have an NFT artwork that's just a picture, it's static, they'll have a print of that they hang on their wall. So yeah, I'd say a lot of NFTs have made it to the physical world. I haven't seen that specific example though.
Can you discuss the ability of artists assuring a healthy percentage when selling NFTs at first sale and then a healthy percentage of residual sales?
Yeah, I would say for most artists will set a royalty of 10%. I think that's pretty common. So I think you're totally fine setting that as the royalty percentage. And then yeah, I can't tell if the question is whether or not there's a way to ensure royalties are paid out. If it is, there's my answer to that is like or I guess that's the next question. So maybe we could just move on to that.
Oh, can smart contracts ensure artists will earn residuals every sale, even if they get resold numerous times way into the future?
So the answer is not really. The problem is an NFT is a digital item that you can truly own, which means people have if people are really determined, then they could sell it with and cut out the royalty. I mean, they could even you could even set up a system where you sold an NFT to someone and the payment just happened totally separate than the NFT transfer, so no one even knew it was a sale. The thing that smart contracts can do is they can basically encode into the information about the NFT how much, what royalties should be and where those royalties should be paid out. And then marketplaces can read that information and automatically pay it out, which is that's pretty common. I mean, basically almost every major NFT marketplace, I think basically everyone honors artist royalties. As I said earlier, I mean, I think if you tried to start an NFT marketplace where you didn't honor artist royalties, you wouldn't be able to get very far, because artists would tell their audience, please don't trade there, and strongly encourage collectors not to use that platform. But yeah, the answer is no. You can't guarantee it in the smart contract, but you can write information in the smart contract that sets it as an expectation, and almost everyone will honor it.
Is there a specific or recommended way to connect with collectors and upcoming curators?
I mean, I think the best way to do it is on Twitter and Discord, which almost sounds like a cliche because I have said it so many times tonight, but that's where most of the NFT community exists, and a lot of them are very friendly and open. And so, yeah, those two social media platforms are really the best way for people to make connections in the NFT space.
All right. So I think we've had our last question. All right. So again, thank you so much, Duncan, for joining us. And thank you to your amazing Nifty Gateway team for partnering with us on this. This was an amazing and informative conversation. And everyone who's tuned in, please join us next week because we will be joined by two Nifty Gateway NFT artists, Sam Madhu and Ola Vola. who will be here to share their perspectives from the artist point of view. So Duncan's given you the lay of the land about the ecosystem. And next week, Thursday, at 6 p.m., you get to hear from two artists and hear how entering in the NFT space has transformed or changed their careers as artists, and also learn about their backstory, about all of the amazing art that they created before and how they transferred their communities into this world. So please join us then. Thank you to Parsons Continuing Professional Education for partnering with us on this. Go to niftygateway.com to learn more about the platform, definitely. And also check out parsonsentrepreneur.com to learn more about our platform as well. But thank you, Duncan, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.